the heavy sound of gold striking teeth. A coin forced in, a crack, then another. Screams rising after. You're in Baghdad's throne room, February 1258. The richest city on earth is now trembling inside its own treasury. The man kneeling before you isn't just a king. He's the Caliph, leader of the Islamic world, a ruler who sat on the throne for 36 years, who believed God protected him, that he was untouchable. Now his mouth is being filled with gold, metal and blood mixing, dripping from his chin. Mongol generals laughing, forcing another coin down his throat. Other sounds coming from the next room, horse hooves on marble floors, then screams, then silence. His sons wrapped in carpets, crushed one by one, his daughters dragged to the courtyard, screams lasting for hours. An 800-year dynasty, humanity's capital of knowledge, the planet's wealthiest city, erased in 7 days. And what was done to that family was the part history often skips over. This is Sable Historians. If these stories matter, support with a like and subscribe, because some truths are meant to be buried. So how does a man die choking on his own gold while his sons are crushed to death in the next room? It starts with laughter. September 1257. A letter arrives at the Caliph's palace. Al-Mustasim reads the lines in front of his advisors. Not a single line moves on his face. Then he laughs. These barbarians don't know who they're speaking to. That laugh will cost him everything. Al-Mustasim wasn't an ordinary ruler. He was the Caliph, seen as the successor to Prophet Muhammad, a figure holding spiritual authority over millions of Muslims. He carried a title that had lasted 37 generations. And Baghdad wasn't an ordinary city. For 5 centuries, it had been the heart of human knowledge. The House of Wisdom held texts that would take a lifetime to read. Scholars traveled from Spain to Samarkand just to study here. Baghdad's population exceeded 1 million. It was the world's richest, most cosmopolitan city, and the Caliph believed it was untouchable. The letter from Hulagu Khan was short and clear. You've heard what happened to the Persian cities. Either submit or learn what they learned. The Caliph's vizier begged. These aren't ordinary raiders, he said. This is a machine. The Khwarezmian Empire had 400,000 soldiers. They were destroyed. Nishapur had walls 30 feet thick. They were erased. We can't fight them. We can only try to survive. The Caliph raised his hand, cutting him off. We are the Caliphate. We don't bow to horsemen. And then he did nothing. No preparation, no resources allocated for defense, no opening of the treasury doors. That treasury, rooms filled with gold, silver, and jewels, a fortune that could buy the world's largest army if he wanted. But that fortune remained locked in darkness while the storm gathered on the horizon. 5 months later, approximately 150,000 Mongols besieged Baghdad. The walls fell. The Caliph sent a message. I will surrender, spare the city. Hulagu Khan's response was brief. Come to my camp. Bring your family. A ruler who sat on the throne for 36 years walked to that camp with his sons and daughters like lambs. What would you have done? On February 13th, 1258, Al-Mustasim left Baghdad. He took his 3 sons, 3 daughters, and 3,000 people from the palace. Ministers, scholars, generals, all unarmed. Mongol guards immediately surrounded them. Silently, watching. The procession moved slowly through the Mongol camp. Thousands of soldiers watching. No insults, no violence, just eyes. Eyes everywhere. Hulagu Khan received the Caliph in his command tent. His first question wasn't ideological, it was simple. Where is your treasury? Al-Mustasim hesitated. We are prepared to pay tribute. Where? Soldiers were sent. Hours later they returned. Their expressions said enough. Gold ingots, thousands of them. Chest after chest of silver coins. Jewels accumulated over 800 years. Enough silk to outfit an army from head to toe. It was all there. While the walls crumbled, while soldiers went unpaid, while the city stood defenseless. Hulagu Khan ordered the Caliph taken to his own treasury. They led him back through Baghdad, through streets now controlled by Mongol soldiers, past smoking buildings, to his own vault. The doors were open. They walked him room by room, vault by vault, without a single word, but the silence hung heavy like a question. Why was this locked while the walls fell? Why was this hidden while soldiers starved? Why did you protect gold instead of your people? The Caliph had no answer. Hulagu Khan slowly shook his head. You loved this more than your empire, more than your army, more than your family. He paused. Now you will taste it. What followed was recorded by the Persian historian Rashid al-Din Fazlullah. The Caliph was forced to kneel among the gold he'd hoarded while his city burned. Mongol soldiers grabbed his jaw, forced his mouth open. Gold coins began to be pushed inside. One, then another. He tried to spit. They held his jaw closed, forced more in. His teeth cracked against metal, gums tore, blood from his lips mixed with gold. They continued, coin after coin, forced toward his throat, toward his stomach. Hulagu Khan watched, no emotion on his face. You starved your army to fill these vaults. You sacrificed your walls to protect this gold. Now let it fill you. Let this be the last thing you taste. The Caliph began to convulse, his body trying to reject what was forced inside. His stomach felt like it was tearing from within. Finally, he collapsed onto the stone floor of his own vault, blood and gold flowing together from his mouth. But he wasn't allowed to die. Not yet. Because Hulagu Khan had ordered the children brought, and what happened next would make the gold seem almost like mercy. The Caliph had 3 sons, Prince Mubarak, 23 years old, the eldest, the heir, raised from birth to rule the Islamic world, educated by the finest scholars, prepared in diplomacy and statecraft. For a throne he would never sit on. His entire life spent with the promise that one day he would rise as a leader before millions. Prince Ahmed, 21 years old, quieter, more introspective. He spent his time in the House of Wisdom, studying astronomy and poetry. He loved books more than politics. He looked to the stars more than thrones. He never wanted to rule, he only wanted to understand. Prince Ali, 14 years old, still half a child, still young enough to believe his father could fix everything, still innocent enough to think this nightmare would end. He'd never seen real violence in his life, never seen death. His greatest fear was a stern tutor's reprimand. They were dragged into the treasury in chains, and they saw their father, a man lying on the stone floor, blood and gold on his lips, gasping for breath, barely recognizable. The person they'd believed their whole lives was the world's most powerful man had become a broken shadow curled in the corner. Prince Mubarak lunged toward his father. At the first step, Mongol guards grabbed him by the shoulder and threw him back hard. Father. No answer. The Caliph's eyes were open but empty inside, looking but no longer seeing. Hulagu Khan stepped forward. He surveyed the 3 young men with the cold attention of a butcher weighing an animal before slaughter. Where is your God now? The words hung in the air. The silence settling into the room was heavy, the kind of emptiness left behind when hope abandons a space. Prince Mubarak stepped forward again. Was this courage? Pride? Or the final instinct of a prince who'd never knelt? Allah will punish you for this. Hulagu neither laughed nor grew angry. He simply tilted his head slightly, like a teacher noting a student's final answer. Then he gave a short order. The Mongols held to an ancient belief. Royal blood must not touch the ground. If noble blood flowed directly, it would disturb the cosmic order, carry misfortune through generations. So they'd developed another execution method for nobility. The guards grabbed Mubarak first. He resisted. Of course he resisted. He was 23 and watching his world collapse. But there were too many hands, too many soldiers. They pinned him to the floor, unrolled a heavy ornate Persian carpet, began laying Mubarak inside and wrapping him, layer by layer, tighter, tighter, until his arms couldn't move, until his legs couldn't shift, until he couldn't even turn his head, his voice muffled through the wool fibers. "Father, Father, help me." The Caliph didn't move. "Please, someone, anyone." The only answer in the room was the creak of carpet fibers. The carpet was laid flat on the marble floor like a straight line. Mongol cavalry urged their horses forward. These weren't ordinary animals. They were massive horses trained for war, accustomed to armor and screams, each strong enough to carry 5 men's weight. And they rode over the carpet. Rashid al-Din Fazlullah compared the sound to breaking wood, but that's an incomplete description. Wetter, deeper, the sound of something that should stay whole turning into something else from the inside. The horses turned back. Again. Again. The carpet trembled. The screams from inside changed. First fear, then pure pain. Then sounds no longer human, choked animal sounds. And then silence. The Caliph watched, his firstborn. The heir prepared for the throne. The continuation of an 8th century dynasty, crushed inside a carpet, beneath horse hooves. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't move from his spot. It was as if nothing inside him remained to react. Prince Ahmed was next. 21 years old, the scholar, the poet, the boy who looked at stars. When they grabbed him, he didn't resist. He'd just seen how his older brother died. He knew what was coming. They wrapped him too. Same method, same tightness, same suffocating wool. When the carpet was laid on the floor again, he was repeating a single word. "Father, Father, Father." The horses advanced. The scream stopped. The Caliph still didn't move. His eyes were open but not looking. His mind had fled to a place these sounds couldn't reach. Then they grabbed Prince Ali, 14 years old, the youngest of the family. He didn't try to be brave, didn't challenge Hulagu Khan, didn't call on God. He just cried, with uncontrolled sobs that shook his whole body, tears streaming down his face, his nose running. He was no longer a prince, just a terrified child. The last remnants of princely pride collapsed. "Please, please, I don't want to die. Please." Ali's voice cracked. His father, his mother, his brothers who were no more, anyone who could save him. No answer came. The guards wrapped him tighter than the others. His small body nearly disappeared inside the heavy Persian carpet. Among the wool fibers, only a small bulge remained, small enough to miss. The horses approached. This time the sound was different, lighter, shorter. Small bones break with less noise, and silence comes faster. After a few passes, it was over. When the 3 carpets were rolled aside, dark stains spread across the white marble floor. 3 stains, 3 sons, 3 erased futures. Hulagu Khan turned to the Caliph. The old man hadn't moved, hadn't spoken. His eyes were fixed on the stains on the floor, as if searching for the solution to a riddle whose meaning he could never grasp. "Your sons are gone. The dynasty ends here." A brief pause. "But our work isn't finished." He turned his head toward the door. "Bring the daughters." He had 3 daughters left. Princess Zainab, 25 years old, the eldest, sharp-minded, educated in philosophy, speaking 5 languages. Her poems were read in courts from Cairo to Damascus. Princess Kadia, 20 years old, calmer, gentler-natured. She spent her days in the palace gardens with flowers. Princess Aisha, 12 years old, the youngest, her bracelet still loose enough to slip from her thin wrists. They'd been kept in a separate room. They hadn't seen their brothers' deaths, but they'd heard them. The screams, the horses' hooves, that heavy silence after each scream. When the guards opened the door, they already knew what they would face. The three sisters were dragged into the treasury, and there they saw everything. Their father was on the floor, broken, shattered. Their father was no longer a person, but a body lying on marble. The three dark stains on the floor were still wet. This was all that remained of their brothers. Princess Zainab didn't scream, didn't cry. Her face emptied, as if a door had quietly closed inside her. Princess Kadia's knees gave out. She couldn't stand. She collapsed to the floor, began rocking back and forth. The sounds from her mouth weren't words. They were broken syllables without meaning. Princess Aisha ran, clung to her father, wrapped her arms around his chest, buried her face in the blood and gold-scented fabric. "Father, father, wake up. Please wake up." No answer. The Caliph's eyes were open but empty inside. Wherever his mind had taken refuge, it wouldn't return. Hulagu Khan watched them for a while. Then he spoke. The boys had to die. Royal blood. Potential heirs. You understand. He stepped closer. But you have value. For these girls, death could have been mercy. Mongol tradition often prohibited the direct execution of noble women, but this protection didn't mean freedom. They were now property, living spoils, proof that the Mongols owned everything. The land, the wealth, the future, the blood. First, Zainab and Kadia were grabbed. Soldiers took them by the arms, began dragging them toward the door. Zainab looked back one last time, at her father, at her little sister, at the dark stains where her brothers once were. Her eyes met Aisha's. That look held everything. Childhood days in the gardens, stories their mother told, prayers whispered before bed, futures they would never live. Then the door closed. Zainab and Kadia were taken to the Mongol camp, toward a life where they would no longer be recognized. The sisters were handed over to commanders, distributed like rewards for loyal service, taken in different directions. They never saw each other again. Centuries later, a brief record found in the Ulaanbaatar archives mentions two high-born Arab women given to General Qaidar after Baghdad's fall. That's all. No names, no ages, no fates, recorded like furniture, like horses, like spoils. No document of their deaths, no graves, no record of children they bore, just a single line in a Mongol inventory. They don't die in history, they're just erased. But Aisha, the youngest, 12 years old, Hulagu Khan kept her with him. He pulled her away as she clung to her father's body. Aisha kicked, thrashed, screamed. But she was 12. Hulagu was a commander who'd brought half the world to its knees. He kept her as a symbol, as proof that even the Caliph's blood could be transformed into Mongol form. In the following months, he dismantled her identity piece by piece. Forced to wear Mongol clothing, compelled to speak Mongolian, Baghdad's name forbidden from her lips. Remembering was prohibited. Decades later, a Persian writer describes meeting an elderly woman in Tabriz. The woman claimed to be Princess Aisha. She was 80 years old, her back bent like a bow, her voice cracked. Her Arabic was broken, words fragmented with Mongol sounds. She barely remembered Baghdad. The gardens were erased. The palace was only vague shapes. Her mother's face had completely vanished, but she remembered that night. The sound the horses made passing over the carpets, that wet, collapsing crunch, the sound that meant her brothers would never return. Her sisters being dragged away, their screams fading, clinging to her father, and his not responding. His eyes open but empty, as if his soul had already left his body. And she remembered one more thing. Hulagu Khan had leaned down, his face close to hers, his breath at her ear. He'd whispered low enough that others wouldn't hear. "You are the last. Your line ends with you." Years later, the Persian writer asked her about these words. After all this time, What do you think now?" The old woman looked for a long time. Her eyes were those of someone who'd seen much, lost much, and now surprised by almost nothing. "He was right." That's all she said. He was right. 70 years of exile, 70 years carrying her family's ashes in her chest, and finally, forced to accept the words of the man who took everything. She was the last. And when she died, nothing would remain. Back in the treasury, the Caliph was still alive, his body destroyed with gold, his mind shattered from watching his children die, his sons crushed, his daughters taken, everything he built, everything he protected, everything he loved, reduced to bloodstains and silence. But Hulagu didn't kill him immediately, because death had to mean something, had to echo, had to become a story that would haunt kings' sleep for generations. He ordered the Caliph wrapped in a carpet too, tight, suffocating. But this time the horses didn't come. Instead, the Mongols built a wooden platform over the wrapped Caliph and held a feast. Hulagu and his generals sat on top. They ate, they drank, they laughed, they celebrated their victory. Beneath them, the man who once led one of the world's most powerful cities was slowly suffocating. Every step, every sitting, every laugh tightened the carpet a little more. Each burst of laughter stole a little more air from the Caliph's lungs. Each raised cup celebrated his line's end. The feast lasted through the night. When morning came, they opened the carpet. The Caliph's face was purple, his eyes still open. No wounds, no blood, just the frozen expression of suffocation. The man who laughed at Hulagu Khan's letter, the man who believed his title would protect him, the man who hoarded his gold more than his people, dead on the stone floor of his own treasury. 800 years of the Abbasid dynasty, 37 generations, ended in a single night. The horror didn't stay confined to the treasury walls. Baghdad was systematically dismantled. Building by building, street by street. The House of Wisdom, one of the world's greatest libraries, was set on fire. Centuries of accumulated human knowledge turned to ash. Books were thrown into the Tigris River. There were so many the water turned black with ink. A scholar named Ibn al-Fuwadi survived by hiding in a well for 3 days. When he emerged, the city was silent. The streets were filled with corpses. Dogs were eating the dead because no one remained to bury them. Baghdad was gone. But here's the thing. The Mongols didn't destroy Baghdad to erase it. They destroyed it to be remembered. Within weeks, the story reached Damascus. Within months, Cairo. Within a year, every ruler from Anatolia to India knew what happened in Baghdad and what was done to the man who thought he was untouchable. Damascus surrendered without fighting. Aleppo sent tribute before the Mongols even reached the gates. The message was clear. Resist. Your family is destroyed. You're wrapped in carpet. Your title won't save you. Submit. You live. Baghdad wasn't a conquest. It was a declaration. A message written in blood, gold, and children's screams. And some messages, once sent, never need repeating. Remember that laugh Al-Mustasim Billah gave after reading Hulagu Khan's letter? These barbarians don't know who they're speaking to. That laugh cost his sons, cost his daughters, cost his dynasty, cost his life. One moment of arrogance, one piece of pride. And an 8th century order collapsed. He believed his title would protect him. He believed God would save Baghdad. He believed 800 years of history meant something to men carrying swords. He was wrong. Titles don't stop armies. Faith doesn't change arrows' direction. Gold hoarded in vaults doesn't buy off a siege. He had everything needed to fight. Wealth, resources, time. He just didn't believe he had to. That's what's truly horrifying. Not the Mongols, not the carpets, not the gold. A man so convinced of his own importance that he didn't see the end until it was forming before his eyes. Some empires fall to their enemies, some to their own blindness, and some families are erased from history because one man laughed at the wrong letter. This is Sable Historians. If this story left a mark on you, leave a like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, because these kinds of stories don't survive on their own. Either we tell them, or they vanish too, like Baghdad's libraries, like those princesses. Until next time.